This is The Surge Effect, and I'm your host, Mike Surge. This podcast will be talking about anything and everything. Life in general, the current events and past events, and all things about this beautiful and wonderful world that we live in. And this podcast, well, it'll probably have an effect on you. Well, hello again, and welcome to another episode of The Surge Effect. It's been a few weeks since I did my last podcast, just because I had some technical difficulties with my PC and other hardware, and I had to do some finagling and get things replaced. But hey, it is what it is. I'm back, and hopefully I can start pumping out some more content more frequently for everyone, to keep everyone posted what's going on here in Canada and around the world. Before I get started, of course, I always have to mention a couple of things. And the first thing is going to be my first sponsor, which is Love My Legs, Owen Sound Grey Bruce. Right there. Click on the link below. Go right to Love My Legs. They are on Facebook, and they are more than just another legging company for sure. And they have the only lifetime guarantee in the business. And my number two sponsor is He-Shirts, She-Shirts. He-Shirts, She-Shirts is more than just another t-shirt company. They sell all kinds of things, coats, pants, jackets, all kinds of stuff. Click on their link below in the description and head on over to check out what they have to offer as well. And one more thing before we get going, I always like to throw in a couple items that, of course, I always grab on Amazon, things that I take personally. And one of them is this thing right here, which is a Allmax BCAA, which is a branched chain amino acids. Great for hydration and great for what ails you for sure. If you don't know what branched chain amino acids are, go check them out online, and you'll be surprised. Anyway, works great for me. So let's get into it. What's been going on in this cycle here in the last little bit? The first thing is going to be this was just in the paper the other day. This is Justin Trudeau, of course. He is in the news a lot. This was just dumped in the paper literally just the other day. Yeah, yesterday or today. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has overwhelmed Canada welfare structure and housing capabilities with out-of-control immigration, a step that brings us closer to national suicide, writes Ron Hoffman. How to commit national suicide. So, of course, that is in the paper. You can read a little bit of it right there. It says, first choose a weak leader for centrist party. Weak leaders sinking Canada. Rick Hillier, April 10th. As a child, this person was fed on left-leaning political philosophy and admiration or communist-leaning dictators. His only observable talent or ability is an innate understanding of how to retain power. It goes on and on. A lot of people talk about different things in this article. So, yeah, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about, of course, that, and this is what occurred the other day at the G7, if no one's paying attention.
It is always such a pleasure to have an opportunity to sit down with my friend Volodymyr Zelensky. Obviously, this is a really important time to have you here at the G7, and quite frankly, to see a consensus on something that we've worked on together for many, many years. We've been talking about the need to go after some of the Russian assets and the Russian profits particularly, and the fact that we came to a consensus today on $50 billion worth of direct support for Ukraine that the G7 and allies are going to be backstopping. Canada is actually the first country to announce $5 billion of that will be a Canadian contribution, because we know how important it is to make sure you have the tools to continue to defend not just your country but all of our democracies. And
$5 billion, everyone. $5 billion. And with everything going on in our own country, I think it's ridiculous. It's my personal opinion, but spending that kind of money on what is happening in our own country is ridiculous, because it's like you're looking after someone else's house before your own house is in order. It's almost like a parent looking after kids. And if a parent doesn't look after his own kids and he neglects those kids and looks after kids in another house, pretty shitty of that parent, don't you think? Same kind of principle. Let that sink in. Next clip I'm going to show you here is of Michael Cooper. Michael Cooper talks in this clip about how taxpayers' dollars are being wasted here in Canada. And I'll let you have a listen.
In 2021, it was confirmed that the CEO received bonuses in the amount of $96,000. VPs received bonuses of $48,000. I'm talking about for each VP, and each board member. You said board members don't receive bonuses. They received $11,000 in bonuses. Each and every board member. We're talking about, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars in bonuses. Can you confirm that bonuses were awarded on the basis of meeting funding goals? In other words, getting money out the door.
The performance, pay for performance framework that we follow at STTC is linked to corporate performance, which starts with the corporate plan. And so objectives are set for the year within the corporate plan.
That would include getting money out the door, correct?
There are a number of initiatives, including
Simply
supporting the ecosystem.
I asked if that was one of the criteria, yes or no. And you know the answer to that, and the answer is yes, but I'm going to put it to you to put that on the record.
But yes, disbursements to companies that have been approved are one of the targets for the year.
That's right. And so what we have is $319 million that were funneled by board members to companies that they had an interest in, which violated the law, which were blatant conflicts of interest, outright corruption, so that they in turn could meet bonus eligibility criteria, so that, guess what, they could pad their pockets with even more money. Now, I would characterize that as an absolute racket. It is corruption on a scale that I don't know what it's comparable to. It makes the sponsorship scandal look small by comparison.
So there's, like I said, Michael Cooper, and that is a committee on accountability of taxpayers' dollars. That's pathetic, and that's more money going out the window. Trudeau, like I said, just gave $5 billion of Canadian tax dollars to Ukraine, and we're having issues in our own country, and that's just one of them. And here's Cat Canada, of course, from Twitter. This is what she has to say in regards to immigration. Here we go.
Just as a team of amazing people are getting ready to reclaim Canada at the Reclaiming Canada conference this weekend, Pierre Poilievre announces today that he will be severely cutting immigration when he wins. This is the start of us reclaiming this country. This is amazing news.
Okay, so like I said, she was talking about immigration and the numbers coming into Canada. We have so many people.
Now more fallout after the...
We have so many people in Canada that we have like encampments that are in Canada. It's just, and it's nationwide, right from the west to east.
Tents are now appearing in other parts of the city as concerns grow for the health impact on the homeless.
CTV's Penny Daflos reports.
New tents and makeshift shelters are growing up in Vancouver, but this isn't East Hastings Street. From Riley Park to this growing shanty town in Kitsilano.
Yeah, so let's give $5 billion to the Ukraine when we have homeless encampments. That's in Vancouver. Here's Kelowna.
It's a 1-minute video that has Kelowna trending on Twitter. The video shows tent after tent in a long line at the city's...
So I'm not going to play you a lot of that. That's Kelowna, BC. And here's one in Halifax.
For the first time in his life, Michael Baker is living in a tent.
It's small, but at least it's home for now.
And he just got an upgrade. This tent is meant to be used for ice fishing. His other one, meant for camping, was leveled in a windstorm. He's been living outside Halifax City Hall for more than a month.
I was trying to get...
So that's Halifax. So as you can see, it's literally right across Canada. And let's give $5 billion to the Ukraine and just keep doling out money and bringing in immigration into Canada. And we don't have enough homes for our own people. I don't understand why people don't see this as just common sense, just normal common sense stuff. I don't quite understand it. This is literally today. Leslie Church is running in her riding, and they're having a by-election in Toronto. And this was Ezra Levant. This is today. Check this out.
We're driving on Yonge Street in Toronto, one of the busiest streets in the city. And just ahead, if I'm not mistaken, oh, there it is the by-election campaign office of Leslie Church, the Liberal candidate. And it's just so classic that they have a homeless man outside their campaign office. It's got nothing to do with the campaign we're on for the truck, but it's very sad to see how they don't care about that man. I mean, he's literally sitting at their doorway and they don't help him.
So there's a homeless man basically living right, crashed out right in her doorstep. And like I said, they're having a by-election today. And the Liberals, of course, put out all the stops. Trudeau was there and Chrystia Freeland were there, and they were door knocking for the last couple of weeks in that area. And because they really want her to get in. They don't want her to lose that seat. It's all political, right? So, of course, like I just said about the homelessness, now we're on to a little bit of immigration coming into the country. This is in Denmark. This just happened just the other day. Of course, these are immigrants, Muslims. They're praying on carpets. This is in Denmark. There's like thousands of them. And they're in like a big town square, and they're praying. I'm going to show you another one here. This is this is down in Toronto, actually. This is pro-Hamas in Toronto. So, of course, this has been going on in the news for weeks and months, right? Because, of course, what happened in October the 7th in Gaza when Hamas slaughtered 1,300 people at a peace rally. And, of course, this is all happening across the world, right? It's Denmark and Canada and Australia. Immigration, of course, the people that are coming into your country and they want to protest. Hey, you can protest. That's fine because that's our right to protest. But you start spewing hateful nonsense to other people and death to Jews and stuff. That is bad. Very, very bad. I don't understand why people don't, the politicians and the law doesn't snap down on them. So here's another fellow that was asked a question in regards to kind of immigration and Islam, and here's what he has to say.
By 2060, Muslims will be the biggest religious group the world over. What are you going to do then? Actually, are you going to oppose Sharia even then? If we have families, we are making babies. You are not. Our population is going down the slump. One day we can have a Muslim majority nation here in Canada. Right in your face.
You say that you want Sharia law to displace Canadian law. That doesn't sound very respectful.
Not in majority, you wouldn't have any other option, my friend. Islam doesn't endorse gayism. Islam doesn't endorse homosexuality. The gay people are doing is against the commandments of God.
So basically he said a couple of things there. The first thing he said was in regards to numbers. So like he was just saying that Muslims have huge families. So it's all mathematics, it's just numbers. If whatever country that the immigration comes in and they have to be Muslims and they are 4 or 5 children, or 5 or 6, 7, 8 children per family, and you have one, over time, they're going to have more. Of course, it's mathematics. In Canada, in our democracy, it's 50 plus 1. If certain areas, of course, just like happens in the States with Minnesota, they're overrun with certain types of immigrants, and they vote those people in as congressmen and senators because they're a republic. They're a bit different than our democracy here in Canada, but we'll get into that another time. So in Canada here with our democracy 50+1, so they're voted in. They can get into parliament, obviously. They can get into all walks of government and start changing laws. And literally, over time, all the laws can get flipped. And if you don't think that's possible, then you're not paying attention. You're really not, because that's how it works. Excuse me, that's how it works. The system works that way. It's 50+1. So you have the numbers and you vote on something, you start changing laws, it's passed, boom. Next thing you know, this is in, this is out. That's the way it works. So let's move on to the next one, which is, this is a Rebel News reporter, and she actually got spray painted with a type of like a sand paint or something from an umbrella. These people were these were pro-Hamas in Quebec, and they were shooting the stuff at her, and this is what happened.
Rebel News! Hey!
So that was the first one. And then they charge her. So about 10 or 11 of them are charging her here.
Touche pas, c'est une agression.
Keep pushing her back.
Rebel News, they call it! Rebel News, they call it! Rebel News, they call it! Bye-bye, bye!
And then someone just came up and sprayed her with something. Like that could have been anything, really. I mean, it could have been something very bad. It could have been, acid or something. No one knows. But for this to happen and no one do anything about it, those people weren't charged with anything. It's things are getting out of control, right? Just out of control. Next one I'm going to show you here is Canada reportedly preparing to evacuate 45,000 citizens from Lebanon amid war fears. So once again, more people coming in. And hey, listen, I have nothing against immigration. Zero. But I'm of the adage, because it's common sense, if you have a 3-bedroom home and someone says you got to move 20 more people in there, you have no room. But they say, oh, too bad, you got to move them anyway. So you got to move more people into your house that you don't have room for. So here's Canada. We have so many people in our country right now, and I just showed you homeless videos right across the nation. Homes are through the roof for pricing. Groceries are through the roof for pricing. We have our debt in this country is ridiculous. So all the pricing of that we're paying for is through the roof, but we're bringing in more people when our own people can't even survive. It doesn't really make any sense to me to do something like that. It just doesn't. So this here, I happen to catch this on Twitter. Of course, the top one says 3 felony charges. That's one of the Pride crosswalks. It says 3 felony charges because people were on it with their little wheelers and maybe putting rubber on it and stuff. And here's one here for a war monument, and it was just desecrated. No charges were laid. It's just a double-edged sword, which is kind of silly. So I don't know where it's going to stop, but what we could do, obviously, is talk to our MPs, our local MPs, and get things fixed that way, because it's not going to get fixed by doing nothing. People need to get a hold of your MPs, then they can take their concerns, of course, to our House. That's why they're elected. That's how our democracy works. You elect people to represent you and then go from there. But for our people in the high ups not to pay any attention and not listen to anything we have to say is not good. So here's Pierre Poilievre in our House the other day, and he's talking about a little bit about climate change and money that we pay because of it.
What this session of Parliament taught us is that after 9 years of this Prime Minister, everything is broken. 25% of Canadians are now living in poverty. 2 million lined up at food banks. 38% more people are homeless. Housing costs have doubled. It wasn't like this before this Prime Minister, and it won't be like this after he's gone. Will he put us through another year and a half of this costly hell, or will he call a carbon tax election today so we can elect a common sense government to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime?
If the leader of the opposition actually cared more about Canadians than he does about his own political interests, he'd be supporting the 400,000 kids we're going to help with the National School Food Program. He'd be voting in favor, instead of opposing at every turn, the dental care program. But Mr. Speaker, he doesn't care about Canadians. He cares only about himself.
These are the same promises that he's been making for 9 years. And instead of the theoretical utopia that he's promised, what Canadians are living through is hell, with tent cities popping up across the country in places they never existed before, with 2 million people lined up in food banks, 1 in 10 Torontonians included in that number, in a town where right now it is impossible for almost anyone to afford a home, and there are 256 tent cities. Why won't he recognize that these are the very real consequence of his policy of wackonomics?
The Conservative leader is choosing to demonstrate what everyone knows Conservative parties do, which is protect the wealthiest and let everyone else fend for themselves. He's standing with the wealthiest, not with the middle class and people working hard to join it.
Mr. Speaker, the middle class doesn't exist after 9 years of this Prime Minister. Here are the facts. 76% of young people believe they'll never afford a home. 38% more homeless people. 256 homeless encampments in Toronto alone. 2 million people lined up at a food bank. 1 in 4 Canadians skipping meals because they can't afford the price of food. Is this what he meant when he said sunny ways for the middle class?
Exactly. I just don't understand it. So, of course, he was talking a little bit about the climate change at the start. And here's a little something that I found the other day about climate change.
From Georgia, Mr. McCormick, you're right.
And people can believe what they want because they hear stuff. They make up their own opinion. But this is a House Science Committee holds a hearing on California's carbon rail emissions reductions. I'm going to play the first little bit. This was actually June 13th, which is this month, just about 10 days ago. And this is what was asked of these people on this panel. And pay attention to the numbers.
Recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Abbott, you just brought up an interesting point about the ocean rising. How much has it risen in the last 50 years?
I'll have to get back with you on that, Congressman.
Not significant amount, obviously, 50 years. Since 1970, what's the carbon emissions, the carbon content of the atmosphere? Is it greater or less than what it was in 1970?
Could you repeat that question again?
The carbon content, carbon dioxide levels in the in the entire Earth atmosphere, was it greater or less than it was in 1970?
I would say greater.
You care to state that, bet money on that?
I'll let you answer the question either that I'm right or wrong.
Okay. And what percentage of the atmosphere is made up of carbon dioxide? Percentage of the atmosphere?
It's a little over 400 parts per billion.
So 0.04%, right? Of that, how much comes from human beings? About 11%. Of that, how much comes from the United States? 14%. Of that, how much comes from trains in the United States? 0.5%. So we're talking about eliminating 0.00003% of the Earth's atmosphere carbon dioxide. That's what we're talking about. Is that a negligible effect when it's compared to nitrogen, 71%? Yes. Thank you. So I love science. I love science. Let's talk about science. No, not as a religion, but as science, because that's what this is about. And how much heat is produced when we have to produce massive amounts of electricity. That's what this is about. Do we want to hamstring ourselves by spending trillions of dollars based on some California code of a religion?
So there you go. 0.0003. But I don't know if you recall, years ago, people used to say things like, hey, If they could find a way to tax air, they will. And there you go. That you have the carbon tax because of that. And speaking of taxes, the basic way the government steals your money, if you earn it, it's income tax. If you live somewhere, it's property tax. If you spend it, it's sales tax. If you save it, it's inflation tax. If you invest it, it's capital gains tax. If you start a business, licenses. If you own a good business, profit tax. If you give it away, gift tax. And if you die, an inheritance tax. Get the picture? Because that's what happens, and that's what has always happened, because it's a scam. But people, like I've always said, I would like to see scientists get together with politicians and do something on live TV and do that for the world, and therefore we can all see what's really being pulled over our eyes here. But people can believe what they want. I believe what I want from the information that I have, and you can believe what you want with the information that you have. Nothing wrong with that. I'm going to say a couple more things before I shut down the podcast today, and one of them is, if any person that's in charge of other people do something like this to those people, where they were people from Canada, our fellow citizens were stomped by horses, by police on horseback that trampled other human beings. If a person is in charge of these people and they do this to these people, I personally don't believe they should be in charge. They should not be in charge. They should be voted out immediately. They should be charged, possibly themselves, with a criminal act, because that's horrific when that happens to citizens that are supposed to be protected by people that are in the government, let's say. They should be looking after them. So before I sign off today, I'm going to play one more video. And this last video is from a guy who has a great little Twitter channel. Things I think when I'm stoned. Anyway, he's great. Here you go.
Doing with that money is
giving billions of it to a country that was once widely known and criticized as having one of the most corrupt governments on the entire planet, and was widely known to have a significant Nazi presence. And then, of course, another couple of $1 billion to news organizations and online influencers to tell people that if I'm pointing out that Ukraine was known to be corrupt and full of Nazis, that I'm a far right-wing, Putin-loving, racist transphobe spreading Russian disinformation, and I don't care about grandma's teeth. You spend $8,000 a month on groceries, $49 billion on climate actions that haven't changed the climate. You spend $60 million for an app, $200,000 on mile-high beef brisket with a side of mash, $1 million on cabinet retreats where you and your cabinet eat cheese and crackers and discuss how you can save taxpayers' money, and where not even a single fucking one of you just came up with the idea to just stop spending. And if you don't believe me about the Ukraine stuff, ask your finance minister. She can vouch for it.
All right. So with that, in a nutshell, is going to be the end of my podcast. Give you something to think about there. And until the next podcast comes around, don't forget what I've always say at the end of my podcast. I can be found, of course, on Rumble, all social media platforms, and, of course, YouTube. This is where I put up my channel. Just want to say that, like I said, the last few weeks it's been hard putting all my stuff together because we had a lot of storms up here in Canada, and one of them blew up my one PC. So I had to kind of configure one and rebuild one. So that's where we're at. So anyway, like I said, we're back on track. Good to go. So until next time, next podcast, I'd like to say keep moving forward, everyone. Keep moving forward. And until next time, cheers. This episode sponsored by He Shirts, She Shirts. Go to www.heshirtssheshirts.ca. Just type in the letters TSA, The Surge Effect. When you check out, type in TSA for your coupon and receive 10% off your next purchase. Thanks for listening to today's podcast, everybody.